Alaikum, brothers and sisters. Welcome. It's David Hodge. All right, brothers and sisters. So the ongoing conflict with false Israel in Iran continues. It's not slowing down. It's not getting any better. Things are just getting worse. The pressure is increasing, brothers and sisters. Israel is still under active missile attacks. It's not looking good for them, which we know it ends with their destruction. Iran continues firing missiles into Israel. Attacks are still happening, even while the U.S. claims Iran has weakened. Israel is not safe. The multiple front war is getting worse. Hezbollah fired 100 rockets recently into Israel. The Houthis in Yemen are also attacking. Iran is coordinating across the region. False Israel is now dealing with the north, the south, the east, the southeast, Hezbollah, Gaza, Iran, missiles, Yemen. This is one of the most complex wars false Israel has ever faced, with casualties and civilian impact increasing. People being killed constantly and thousands injured. Missiles hitting residential areas, cities. Even if they claim that they have intercepted missiles, still suffering from falling debris and injuries, which their people are at risk daily. Constant fear and psychological pressure. Sirens and emergency alerts daily continues. People running to shelters, living with uncertainty of peace. Trauma. Also, the economy pressure is rising fast. Global oil prices have surged due to the war. Iran threatening the Strait of Hormuz. That's a huge factor in this, which causes higher gas and fuel costs, inflation, pressure worldwide, affecting, including Israel. This war is now hurting Israel's economy and the global economy. No clear end. Israel is still trying to hold up in this. It's not looking good for them. Their energy crisis, their interferences in Tel Aviv. This war is causing international attention, fear of energy crisis, diplomatic pressure for ceasefire. But we know that there will be no ceasefire. We know that there won't be any success of peace, negotiations, or any of those things, brothers and sisters. It says that everything will backfire. That none of the things that they try is going to work. They won't be successful. So they inherit what they say and they do. So they're talking tough. They're doing all these things. They act like they got it under control, but they don't. They've killed people. They've killed important people, family members, loved ones, such and such. And they think that this thing is going to get swept under the rug. It's not happening. This thing is only going to end with the destruction of false Israel and the other parties being defeated, kicked out of the Middle East, American Britain, and the House of Saud being defeated, and the oil and the authority switch, power switch of Iran, Syria, and the God, Master Farad Muhammad, which had this thing under control. And it's going to be terrible for all the other parties involved. This thing is going to change life as you know it forever. We're talking about the time of unprecedented trouble, brothers and sisters. A time like no other, and never will there be. It says everything that's happening over there, happening in the Middle East, and everything that you can think of is going to be much worse coming here. It says men's hearts will be failing them from fear, having heart attacks from fear and expectation of those things which are coming here, coming on the earth, coming to America. For the powers of the heavens will be shaken, meaning that the parties in power will be eliminated, will be defeated. And there's to be a new authority in power. In the oil, the parties won't be receiving that oil, which is going to affect America's economy, which would be a total economic collapse. You see, no food, no water, no oil, no gas, no nothing. Severe social unrest, total economic collapse, people freezing to death in the dead of winter because there's nothing, no electricity, no heating, no energy for heating, no electronics, no nothing to keep you satisfied, happy, no food. That's what sustains your life. And that's all coming here. That's what it means, hearts to be failing them, literally having heart attacks from the anticipation of what's coming here, over here. What's happening over there, coming over here. So that's where we headed, brothers and sisters. That's why we're telling you to invest in yourself, invest in your vision, which is the Abraham Covenant. Get the hell out of America. Prepare yourself to leave America, because there's no guarantee you will be successful in investing in America, because America will be destroyed. And they're going through judgment, which is set for them and not you, brothers and sisters. But as you can see, things are getting worse, and they're only going to get much worse, brothers and sisters.
In breaking news just coming in, Israel has said that it is intercepting missiles fired by Iran towards its territory, and this comes soon after US President Donald Trump's address to the nation, in which he gave an important update on the war with Iran.
And earlier, Israel's emergency services said that 14 people, including an 11-year-old boy, were wounded in Tel Aviv in a missile attack. And also, they've blamed Iran. And this is the breaking development we're tracking for you at this hour. Israel, as we speak, is intercepting missiles fired by Iran towards its territory. And this is, if it's happening in real time, it's happening as Trump addressed the nation to mention that they have nearly achieved their targets, decimating Iran's military capabilities. And now we hear from Israel that they are intercepting missiles that Israel says are being fired by Iran. They fired at Israeli territory, and this comes soon after Donald Trump's address.
Tensions in West Asia show no signs of a breakthrough as the war enters day 34. In the latest development, Iran launched multiple strikes towards Israel. Authorities intercepted at least 2 attacks in Tel Aviv, which left 4 people injured. Visuals from the scene show a burst water pipeline flooding a street on the outskirts of Tel Aviv. Reports also claim that Iran launched missiles targeting the Israeli port city of Haifa. Meanwhile, in Iran, hundreds of people were seen rallying in Zanjan a day after US-Israeli strikes partially damaged a religious site. Well, the latest wave of attacks come after Donald Trump's recent address to Americans on his war goals. Trump had earlier claimed that Iran had sought a ceasefire. Tehran, however, says that it has no such intent. Still, Trump has vowed that the US will continue to carry out aggressive strikes, targeting the country over the next 2 to 3 weeks. He reassured Americans that a swift, decisive and overwhelming victory is on the cards. However, he stopped short of providing a specific timeline of the end of the conflict.
We totally obliterated those nuclear sites. The regime then sought to rebuild their nuclear program at a totally different location, making clear they had no intention of abandoning their pursuit of nuclear weapons. They were also rapidly building a vast stockpile of conventional ballistic missiles and would soon have had missiles that could reach the American homeland, Europe, and virtually any other place on Earth. Iran's strategy was so obvious. They wanted to produce as many missiles as possible, and they did, with the longest range possible, and they had some weapons that nobody believed they had. We just learned that out. We took them out. We took them all out so that no one would really dare stop them.
While responding to Trump's latest threat, Iran has now affirmed that it will not back down, warning of more crushing.
They're going to hear what they say and they do. Said all things will fail. Said that they'll have heart attacks from fear. Stuff not going away, brothers and sisters. It's not going anywhere. And no one's scared. No one's scared of you anymore. Time's over with.
Crushing and destructive action in the future.
With trust in Almighty God, this war will continue until your humiliation, disgrace, permanent and certain regret, and surrender await our more crushing, broader, and more destructive actions.
And elsewhere in the region, the prospect of peace continues to look grim. The US Embassy in Baghdad has warned that the city may witness attacks over the next 24 to 48 hours by pro-Iranian groups. Meanwhile, the UAE government says it is responding to fresh missile and drone threats by Iran. The human cost of war keeps piling on. The International Federation of Red Cross says that more than 1,900 people have been killed in Iran, with over 20,000 injured. In Israel, missile attacks have killed civilians and injured hundreds, despite interception systems blocking most of the projectiles. The conflict has also hit Lebanon, where over 1,200 people have reportedly died, many of them civilians. So, with no ceasefire in sight and both sides raging, the conflict seems to have no end. The question now, how far will this escalation go?
The world moves fast. Power shifts. Unexpected developments. Change.
All right, brothers and sisters. So as you see, things are intensifying. Things are getting much worse. Iran is not backing down. Things are not looking good for false Israel or America. And let's not forget that all this started with Iran killing women and children, blowing up women and children, starving and dehydrating women and children, preventing them from aid, bombing and blowing up their food stores, homes, schools, bakeries, hospitals, worshiping centers, infrastructures, including their water infrastructure. So-called God's people are supposed to be holy and pure saints, but their actions proved otherwise, and they were committing an act of genocide and assassinating and destroying the Palestinian people, which America was backing and fully supporting that act of great cruelty. The uprising of the Palestinians is being suppressed by Satan, false Israel, with the abominable cruelty, the abominable act of cruelty and destruction is causing hatred, is causing hatred towards Israel to skyrocket. You see, so we know that false Israel was setting up their own destruction, which all their actions, as we explained, will backfire. And these things are not going away overnight. Their destruction is near. Their destruction is coming in on them, whether they like it or not. That is what has happened. That's what they set up. It's nothing that they can do about it, brothers and sisters. Like I explained, this thing's not going to blow over. It's no peace agreement, no negotiations, none of those things. You see, they've caused these things, and now they have to deal with it. They have to deal with their destruction.
A new and explosive message is emerging from Gaza. The military spokesperson of Hamas al-Qassam brigades, the new Abu Obaida, has issued a fiery statement, one that is already sending shockwaves across the region. In it, he praises Hezbollah's recent operations against Israeli forces, calling them consequential and highlighting what he describes as heavy losses inflicted on Israel. But the message doesn't stop there. Abu Obaida calls for intensification, signaling that the conflict may be far from over. His remarks point to a broader strategy, one that places growing pressure on Israel amid an already volatile regional landscape. At the heart of this escalation is the issue of detainees. The statement comes in response to a controversial move by Israel, approval of a law that could allow the execution of Palestinian prisoners, a decision that has triggered outrage and raised fears of further escalation. Abu Obaida frames the moment as a turning point, arguing that past conflicts have shown how central the prisoner issue is to the wider struggle. He points to Gaza's heavy sacrifices in previous confrontations, suggesting that the cost has been immense and ongoing.
This true savage face of the occupation. And since October 7th, while my people were killed live and direct in Gaza, this was paralleled by a silent genocide in prisons. We have documented 89 martyred prisoners executed in prisons. And this narrative is fully documented by our lawyers and the organizations that reached out until we confirmed they were martyrs executed in cold blood. And this law comes to reinforce the genocide and to legitimize the killing of our heroic prisoners. We demand the activation of universal jurisdiction to isolate and prosecute the rulers of the occupation state and its war criminals. We also demand that European and international parliaments sever all ties and agreements with the so-called Knesset, what it purports to be the house of democracy, which serves to legitimize the genocide against the Palestinian people.
We die and 1,000 times a minute because we truly know nothing about our children. Since my son's last court hearing, I haven't known anything about him, and my situation is the same as all mothers of prisoners. The situation of all families, we know nothing about our loved ones. We were surprised by the decision and by its approval, and despite it passing through many stages, there was no hold, neither international nor internal nor external intervention. No one truly feels the pain that they are feeling, the way that we are feeling it.
For the mothers and families of...
Does that sound like peace? Does it sound like everything's going to go away? Said backfire. Backfire. Everything going to backfire. Does it sound like they're going to just say, to hell with what happened? No, they're taking action. They're speaking up. They haven't forgot. None of this stuff is going to blow over. Brothers and sisters, it's not going away. As much as they want these things to go away, it's not happening.
Of prisoners affected by this decision, may God help them. May God help them and strengthen them. This decision struck them like a thunderbolt. Personally, I haven't slept. May God help the one whose son is facing this decision. And I appeal to the president to advance the prisoner's file, not to let it drop. The prisoner's cause is paramount.
This is a law that explicitly sanctions extrajudicial killings, and it clearly represents a deeply racist situation, one that this entire system has embodied since its very inception. Is very Christian posts under the deliberate enactment of this law, solely designed to target Palestinian prisoners post exclusively, and therefore it is a crime against humanity that absolutely must be confronted by every single human rights and legal means possible.
Meanwhile, tensions are not limited to Gaza alone. The statement also accuses Israel of widening its actions across the region, from restrictions around Al-Aqsa Mosque to continued military operations in neighboring areas. All of this, he claims, is part of a broader pattern, one that risks dragging the region deeper into instability. And now, the call is going beyond the battlefield. Abu Obaida is urging Arab and Muslim nations, as well as the wider international community, to take action, to hold Israel accountable, or at the very least, to apply pressure to halt what he describes as ongoing aggression. As the war stretches on, the rhetoric is hardening, the stakes are rising, and with every new statement, the fear grows that this conflict could expand even further, pulling more actors into an already dangerous confrontation. For now, the region watches, waits, and braces for what may come next.
Many of our neighbors in need are going hungry. Others are struggling to choose between paying bills.
Iranian missiles have slammed into central Israel, hitting dense urban zones and triggering fires across streets. Impacts were reported in Bnei Brak, Ramat Gan, and Petah Tikva. 8 people were injured as blasts spread across neighborhoods, with burning cars and shattered buildings. Iran now claims it is expanding the war beyond missiles, targeting industrial and communication hubs linked to Israel's war network. Tehran says drone strikes hit facilities tied to telecom and advanced systems, signaling a shift toward infrastructure and economic warfare alongside direct military strikes.
Iranian army drones targeted strategic industrial and communication centers linked to the Zionist regime in Ben Gurion and Haifa early this morning. The army stated it will continue responding to any aggression until threats against Iran end.
The escalation is now part of a declared long-term campaign. Iran's Revolutionary Guard says this is the 88th wave of Operation True Promise 4, aimed at eroding Israeli and US military power. The messaging signals a sustained war strategy, not a one-off retaliation, with pressure building across multiple fronts. The conflict is rapidly expanding beyond Israel. Iranian-linked forces claim strikes on US targets across the region, alongside coordinated attacks by groups in Lebanon, Iraq, and Yemen. Tehran says over 120 operations were carried out, pointing to a synchronized regional offensive stretching defenses on multiple fronts.
The brave men of the Air Force of the Islamic Republic of Iran, one batch of the American MQ-9 missiles in the region of Isfahan, and one batch of the Lucas missiles of the enemy, were used by the IRGC in the area of Kesh, Rajiri, and Monhadam. At the same time with the operations of the Islamic Revolutionary Army, Hezbollah of Lebanon, and Ansarullah of Yemen in the past few hours against the northern and southern areas of the occupied territories and the Islamic resistance groups of Iraq, in the place of the establishment and disappearance of the U.S. commanders in the center and north of Iraq, they made significant damage to the U.S. enemies. The resistance groups in this step carried out 120 successful and effective operations.
Iran's military command has issued a direct warning to the US and Israel, vowing harsh retaliation and rejecting any control over the Strait of Hormuz. The rhetoric signals rising global stakes as the conflict deepens. With civilians under fire and regional forces mobilizing, this war is entering a far more dangerous phase.
Listen, it's called Connect Team, and it's insane. I don't do schedules or timesheets manually anymore. And it worked?
Let's get to Trey Yingst. He's live in Tel Aviv. What's the mood and the view from there?
Yeah, Bill, Dana, good morning. Overnight, the United States used 2,000-pound bunker buster bombs to target an Iranian ammunition depot. The president releasing some of the video on Truth Social showing significant damage and destruction outside the city of Isfahan. While President Trump is still offering Iran a chance at a diplomatic solution, the U.S. and Israel are ramping up pressure on the Islamic Republic.
The video the president posted last night of Isfahan, an ammo depot struck by U.S. bombers. You see, you don't get to see many of those videos because, as a reminder, Iran has still shut off the internet to 99.9% of its population.
Iran has continued its ballistic missile attacks against Israel, with 2 waves targeting central Israel last night and another 2 cluster munition strikes this morning against Tel Aviv. The Iranians also struck a Kuwaiti oil tanker with a drone off the coast of Dubai early this morning. Officials say the fire caused by that attack is now under control. While Gulf countries and Israel repel Iranian attacks, Israel has expanded ground operations against Hezbollah in southern Lebanon. Dozens of militants were killed there in recent days, according to the IDF. And today, Israel's defense minister, Israel Katz, announced that Israel is building a buffer zone in southern Lebanon up to the Litani River.
All houses in the border-adjacent villages in Lebanon will be destroyed in accordance with the Rafah and Beit Hanun models in Gaza to remove the border-adjacent threats once and for all from the residents of the north.
The IDF announced that 4 additional Israeli soldiers were killed yesterday, bringing the total since the Lebanon operation began to 10. On Monday, a funeral was held for one of those soldiers, just 19 years old.
Enough already. Enough of these funerals, enough of this pain of children who are living and lying here in the ground. What is the value of all these lives? What is the value of all life? Enough of the wars. Make peace already.
This week, the Israeli people will mark the Jewish holiday of Passover, some of them celebrating their Seders in bomb shelters. Bill, Dana?
Trey Yanks in Tel Aviv, thank you.
So Dan Hoffman, Fox News contributor, former CIA chief of station. Dan, good morning to you. Here is Caroline Levitt yesterday at the podium at the press conference at the White House.
Despite all of the public posturing you hear from the regime and false reporting, talks are continuing and going well. What is said publicly is, of course, much different than what's being communicated to us privately. If the Iranians reject this golden opportunity, the greatest military in the history of the world continues to stand by to provide President Trump with every option available to ensure this regime continues to pay a grave price.
Dan, who do you think the United States can communicate with right now, actively and effectively in Iran, if anyone?
Well, I think we are communicating, as Secretary Hegseth said, with our military campaign. So that's for sure what we're doing. I just don't think we've quite reached the tipping point where we can induce Iran to enter into negotiations.
Right. Because there won't be no negotiation. Won't be no peace being made. That's the truth. Those are the facts. They're not in position to make such a call because it's not going to happen. These things are not going to get better, brothers and sisters. Only going to get worse. It says what's happening over there is coming here. Men's hearts will be filling them from fear. From what's coming here, brothers and sisters. Anticipation of what's happening over there is coming here. It hasn't happened. It's something that they're viewing. They'll be having heart attacks. This thing is not going away.
In good faith. Just in the last hour, Lucas Tomlinson reported on Iran striking the UAE with 8 ballistic missiles, 4 cruise missiles, and 36 drones. They attacked a Kuwaiti oil tanker off the coast of Dubai. So they still retain some capability in spite of the massive damage that we've inflicted on their defense industrial base. Iran is not publicly demanding an end to this war. There are some behind-the-scenes indirect negotiations, discussions in Pakistan, reportedly through the Iranian Speaker of Parliament, but I would not characterize those negotiations at this point as anything which would lead to an end to this war, at least diplomatically.
There was a report in the Wall Street Journal saying that Trump tells aides he's willing to end war without reopening Hormuz. Administration officials assess that forcing the waterway back open would mean extending the military mission. In addition, the president posting today, and Pete Hegseth talking about it during his briefing, that the president is telling other countries, like, we don't need this open as much as you do, so you should step in and help us. What are the chances of that?
So I think the president might have been seeking to gain some leverage over our allies and partners whom he hopes would join us in an effort to open the Strait of Hormuz. I think it's in the United States' interest that we do that. We don't want Iran to have a stranglehold on the global price of oil and gas. That would certainly impact the global economy and our economy as well. By extension, Iran would also be extorting the rest of the world and collecting tariff money that they could use to reconstitute their weapons of mass destruction. So I don't think that's how we see this war ending. But I do think the president wants to pressure our allies and partners to join us in an effort to open the strait.
Pete Hegseth said just an hour ago that in the last 24 hours, the fewest missiles have been launched from Iran that they have seen since the conflict began. So that stretches over a 30-day period. Dan, at times the Iranians have shown fairly good accuracy. What do you make of the Russian assistance that's been given on behalf of Moscow? And what can you say about North Korean ballistic missile technology aiding Iran as well right now?
Well, Iran's missile technology for sure came from North Korea. And Russian tactical intelligence has been really valuable to the Iranians. The Russians, remember, provided tactical assistance to the Taliban as well, so they could kill U.S. soldiers in Afghanistan. The Russians are able to give Iran satellite overhead reconnaissance and tactical intelligence That's what the Russians do. It's their currency. They have a very close relationship with Iran. Remember that Iran built factories to produce drones in Russia. Now Russia's returning the favor by sending those drones to Iran. It's in Russia's interest that this war carry on as long as possible and that they degrade the U.S. Reputation in the region and beyond, as well as our military capability and our ability to project force. I think that's what we're seeing here from Russia and Iran. It's this what we see in the outgrowth of the war in Ukraine, where we've got this axis of dictatorships, Russia, Iran, North Korea, and China on one side, and the West and Ukraine on the other side.
Can I ask one last question then about the Houthis? Because they had been relatively quiet until this past weekend when they decided to join the fight. What can happen there? Because that's another strait.
Right. The Bab el-Mandeb Strait, which controls the Red Sea and links to the Suez Canal, that could likewise have a significant impact on trade from the Middle East. And so that's also something that we need to be prepared for. I'm sure that that Secretary Hegseth and his team have a contingency plan to deal with that, along with our allies and partners. But you're right to highlight that. There's more potentially that Iran could do. And remember that Lebanese Hezbollah has also been taking the fight to Israel.
Dan, thank you. To be continued. Pete Hegseth was asked how much longer. He said 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 8 weeks, as pretty much as long as it takes. Dan, thanks. More to come on this, okay? Thank you.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.
Never ever sue the
Welcome to the NewsHour. The war with Iran has entered its second month, and President Trump says the onus is on Tehran to quickly agree to end the war or face the widespread destruction of its energy resources, including its power plants and its oil hubs. But Iran remains publicly defiant, calling U.S. demands unrealistic and continuing its attacks on Israel and the region. Nick Schifrin begins our coverage.
In northern Israel today, the country's largest oil refinery engulfed in smoke. Iran is trying to punish Israel and the region with attacks on energy facilities and a stranglehold on the Strait of Hormuz, which White House spokesperson Caroline Leavitt said today Iran was beginning to release.
20 additional tankers, which we expect to see over the coming days, are a result of the direct and indirect talks that are taking place between the United States and Iran.
President Trump told the Financial Times the Strait of Hormuz agreement was personally authorized by Iran's parliament speaker Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf. He's long been a hardliner who this weekend warned he would, quote, set American troops on fire. But today, President Trump said Iran was led by a, quote, new and more reasonable regime. He also threatened to escalate, writing, if the Hormuz Strait is not immediately opened for business, we will conclude our lovely stay in Iran by blowing up and completely obliterating all of their electric generating plants, oil wells, and Karg Island. Karg Island is about the size of New York's JFK Airport and exports 90% of Iran's oil. Trump told the FT that he would, quote, prefer to take Iran's oil by seizing the island. Maybe we take Karg Island, maybe we don't. We have a lot of options. It would also mean we had to be there for a while. Even for President Trump, a threat to possibly indefinitely occupy Middle Eastern territory is a remarkable statement, as a leader who has for 1 decade vowed to avoid endless wars. But the president dismissed his detractors. My favorite thing is to take the oil in Iran, but some stupid people back in the U.S. say, why are you doing that? But they're stupid people. Over the last week, the U.S. has demanded Iran dismantle its nuclear facilities and hand over its highly enriched uranium, cap its ballistic missile inventory and range, and give up its support for proxies, as Secretary of State Marco Rubio said today.
So they have to abandon all these weapon programs and all of their nuclear ambitions. And if they do that, then Iran's future can be bright.
But today, the U.S. demands were rejected by Iran's foreign ministry spokesman.
The U.S. demands have been very excessive, unrealistic, and illogical.
What is said publicly is, of course, much different than what's being communicated to us privately.
Today, Leavitt said Iran was embracing diplomacy.
When the president says more reasonable, again, these folks are appearing more reasonable behind the scenes privately in these conversations than perhaps some of the previous leaders who are now no longer on planet Earth because they lied to the United States.
But Iran also accuses the U.S. of using diplomacy as cover, Twice during Trump's second term, the U.S. has attacked Iran during high-level diplomatic talks.
I would only say that we're doing extremely well in that negotiation, but you never know with Iran because we negotiate with them and then we always have to blow them up.
The U.S. is amassing more forces, including thousands of Marines with sailors who can launch amphibious assaults. They could conduct raids into Iranian territory, but they could also help defend tankers passing through the strait. In Iran, today the White House said it had struck 11,000 targets out of what President Trump says are 16,000 targets. And Israel continued to target what it says are Tehran weapons production sites. Iran says among the targets have been 3 universities, as well as now hollowed-out high-rise apartments. At least one strike hit a busy street in downtown Tehran, and the city has faced power cuts. Israel is also expanding its invasion into southern Lebanon, expanding what Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu this weekend called a security strip.
I have now instructed to further expand the existing security strip in order to finally thwart the threat of invasion and to keep the anti-tank missile fire away from our borders.
That expansion has come with a cost. Today, Israel buried 19-year-old Sergeant Liron Ben-Zion, an American-Israeli and the 6th Israeli soldier killed in Lebanon in the last month, when Hezbollah entered the war and has since fired at least 850 drones and missiles into Israel. The UN's peacekeeping mission in southern Lebanon said today 3 peacekeepers had been killed in less than 24 hours. And in southern Lebanon this weekend, an Israeli strike killed 3 journalists and multiple paramedics.
Support journalism you trust. Support PBS News. Donate now, or even better, start a monthly contribution to
Snap your W-2 and file your taxes 100% free. Plus, get your biggest refund.
Chaos is deepening inside Israel as anger at Prime Minister Netanyahu grows, with many Israelis blaming him for pushing the country into a war that is now triggering parallel food and energy crises at home. Reports say Netanyahu has effectively locked residents of northern towns into a siege-like reality, keeping them under tight restrictions even as the war with Hezbollah grinds on just across the border. Hezbollah, for its part, has launched around 40 to 43 attacks in a single 24-hour period, hammering Israeli positions with rockets, drones, and guided missiles and leaving multiple soldiers dead or wounded. At the same time, Israelis now find themselves increasingly trapped between Hezbollah's fire and Iran's broader strategy, as Tehran targets energy and food-linked infrastructure in what analysts describe as a bid to fuel a deeper supply crisis and potential starvation fears. Food and energy prices in Israel have surged sharply, triggering widespread public anxiety as households struggle to cope with higher living costs in the middle of a regional war. There is growing unease as the Iran conflict grinds on and Tehran's regional proxies, including Hezbollah, intensify their involvement along Israel's northern front. Despite the uptick in Hezbollah attacks, reports say many Israelis living in vulnerable northern areas have not been allowed to fully evacuate, deepening frustration and fear. An Iranian outlet, Press TV, reported on March 30th that instability inside Israel is rising, highlighting protests, anger at the government, and mounting concern over the war's domestic fallout. Hezbollah has claimed dozens of attacks within a 24-hour period around this time, with some reports citing figures of over 30 strikes in a single day, using rockets, drones, and artillery against Israeli military sites. Israel, for its part, has confirmed that several soldiers have been killed and others wounded in recent Hezbollah operations, underscoring the escalating costs on the northern front. All of this has fed a sense of instability, unease, and rising anger toward the Israeli government, as many citizens worry that the combination of infrastructure attacks and rising prices could tip the country toward a deeper food crisis. Iranian missiles have caused fresh havoc at a key Israeli industrial site as the war grinds into its 5th week, underscoring how critical infrastructure is increasingly in the crosshairs. Israeli pesticides maker Adama said debris from an Iranian missile strike had damaged crucial infrastructure at its Makdashim plant in southern Israel. The company reported that a warehouse holding finished products, along with production equipment and essential systems, had been hit in the incident. The damage at the pesticide facility was detailed in a March 30th report, which highlighted the growing impact of missile and shrapnel strikes on Israel's industrial base. Adama, which produces crop protection materials and is part of the Chinese-owned Syngenta Group, said no injuries were reported, though the full extent of the damage is still being assessed. The company, in a statement to the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange, said, quote, efforts are underway to resume normal operations in a gradual and safe manner as soon as possible. The company is assessing the impact on its operations and financial results, as well as the expected timeline for restoring the affected facilities to full operation, unquote. Iranian missile strikes on an Israeli pesticides factory came soon after Tehran hit the key port city of Haifa, signaling a broader campaign against critical economic infrastructure. Haifa's port is central to Israel's food security and, according to prior reporting, handled roughly 75% of the country's food imports in 2023, making any disruption there especially alarming. The city was targeted by Iran in what it described as its 33rd wave of missile and drone attacks on March 10th, underscoring how frequently this strategic hub has come under fire as the war has escalated.
This is the simplest way to make a freezing bedroom survivable without electricity.
This
The end of Israel, false Israel is near, brothers and sisters. There's nothing you can do to change that. This is what it is. The destruction is near, and this event will change things as you know it forever. Brothers and sisters, nothing will be the same when this event takes place, brothers and sisters. It will send shockwaves through the planet. It's not supposed to happen. It's an abomination. So when God placed them in that land, they're not to be uprooted or removed. So that happens. That means they're not who they claim to be. They'll be exposed for being Satan. The ones who call themselves Jews, they're not this Satan. The ones who have synagogue is Satan. Satan masquerades himself as angel of light. But now he's exposed. Now you rise up, which is their destruction. And that's boom. That's when it says flee, because they're coming to attack us, brothers and sisters. So stay aware of what's happening. Stay in the loop. Get in touch with reality, brothers and sisters. time of unprecedented trouble is near. All right, let's continue.
What is unfolding between Iran and Israel is no longer being seen as just another round of regional tension. It is now being watched as a direct and dangerous confrontation between two states whose actions can quickly shape the wider Middle East and, in some cases, affect global markets, diplomacy, and public confidence far beyond the region. In the latest phase of this crisis, attention has turned sharply toward Tel Aviv and Haifa, where incoming projectiles, air defense activity, emergency alerts and public disruption have once again pushed civilian life into the center of a rapidly developing story. This is not simply about military capability. It is about pressure, messaging, perception, and the political meaning behind every move. When major cities like Tel Aviv and Haifa come under visible pressure, the impact is immediate and emotional. Sirens, shelter runs, blocked roads, emergency services, interrupted flights, disrupted business activity, and rising anxiety all become part of the same reality. And in a conflict like this, that public reality matters almost as much as the strategic one. Israel has been presenting this phase of events as part of a wider campaign to reduce the threat posed by Iran and by groups aligned with Tehran across the region. Iranian officials, meanwhile, have framed their actions as a response to what they describe as sustained pressure and confrontation. Each side is speaking in firm language. Each side is trying to show resolve. And each side is also trying to shape how the world interprets what is happening. That is why the narrative cannot be told only through dramatic visuals or sharp headlines. It has to be understood as a larger contest over deterrence, credibility, and political survival. The scenes in Tel Aviv and Haifa may dominate the screen, but behind those scenes is a deeper struggle over who can absorb pressure, who can maintain public confidence, and who can still claim control as the situation becomes more intense. For people inside Israel, the immediate experience is very different from the language used in official statements. When alerts begin, the first concern is not diplomacy or long-term strategy. It is safety. It is getting to shelter. It is checking where family members are. It is waiting for updates. It is trying to understand whether the danger has passed or whether another wave may still be coming.
Get a brand new air conditioning system installed and do not put a single penny down in the process. You heard me right, guys. If you're anywhere here in the area, we have a special going on where we can get you a brand new high efficiency air conditioning system.
Even when air defense systems intercept many incoming threats, the atmosphere remains tense because uncertainty itself becomes part of daily life. Tel Aviv carries symbolic and practical importance. It is a major economic center, a major population center, and a city that represents modern Israeli civilian life to much of the world. Haifa, too, is deeply important, not just because of its population, but because of its industrial and strategic significance. When those two cities are mentioned together in a crisis, the message is larger than geography. It suggests that the pressure is touching both the civilian heart and the industrial backbone of the country. That is one reason why every incident in and around these areas draws such close attention. A visible impact near infrastructure, a disruption near a refinery zone, a temporary pause in operations, or even an incident that does not create long-term damage can still have a major psychological effect. In this kind of confrontation, perception matters. The public asks not only what was hit, but what could be hit next. And that question becomes more powerful with every new alert. From the Israeli side, the leadership's public posture has remained firm. The government's message is built around the idea that continued pressure is necessary to weaken Iran's reach and prevent greater risks later. The language is meant to reassure the public, warn opponents, and signal to allies that Israel believes it is acting from a position of necessity. At the same time, official messaging also reflects a need to show that the state remains functional, that critical systems remain in place, and that the home front can endure even under repeated pressure. That balancing act is not easy. A government in this kind of moment has to sound strong without sounding reckless, calm without sounding detached, and determined without suggesting that escalation has no cost. The public can accept firm language, but only if it believes that the leadership is also aware of the risks being taken. That is why even the toughest statements are often paired with visible efforts to project control, continuity, and readiness. Iran, on the other hand, is trying to speak to several audiences at once. Domestically, it wants to show that it is not backing down. Regionally, it wants to demonstrate reach and relevance. Internationally, it wants to avoid being portrayed as reckless beyond repair. That creates a dual-track message. On one side, there is defiance. On the other, there are signals that diplomacy is not entirely closed. This is a familiar pattern in major regional confrontations. States often try to show strength while also leaving space for negotiation, even if that space is narrow and mostly private. What makes this especially difficult to read is that public statements themselves become part of the confrontation. Every sentence is strategic. Every word is chosen for effect. A leader's speech is not just commentary on events. It can become an event in itself. It can move markets, affect allied positions, trigger media speculation, and influence whether the next 24 hours feel more stable or more dangerous. That is why it is important not to overread any single statement. One side may claim the other is seeking a pause. The other side may deny it. One side may present an operation as highly effective. The other may minimize its impact. In real time, these claims are often impossible to fully verify immediately. The responsible way to understand the moment is to separate rhetoric from confirmed developments and then place both inside the broader pattern. And the broader pattern is clear. The confrontation has entered a stage where civilian exposure is now central to the story. It is not only about military sites or distant front lines. It is about what happens when the conflict is felt in cities, on roads, around energy-linked infrastructure, in transport systems and in ordinary neighbourhoods. That shift changes how the public processes events. It also changes how outside governments respond, because the visual and political weight of urban disruption is always greater. This is also why international concern rises quickly when major Israeli cities are named in reports. Governments that may otherwise issue cautious statements suddenly face pressure to respond more clearly. Markets begin to watch energy routes more closely. Shipping concerns return to the discussion. Insurance risk becomes part of the story. Diplomatic channels become more active, even when public language remains tough. The wider regional dimension cannot be ignored. This is not a contained dispute. Every direct exchange between Iran and Israel sends a signal across multiple fronts. Regional allies and adversaries watch closely. Gulf states assess exposure. Global energy traders watch for any sign that maritime pressure could intensify. Western governments weigh how far support should go and how much escalation risk they are willing to absorb. Asian economies that depend on stable energy routes also pay close attention. That is why this confrontation carries weight far beyond the immediate battlefield. Even when the visible narrative is centered on Tel Aviv or Haifa, the invisible narrative includes oil markets, shipping routes, diplomatic calls, intelligence coordination, and strategic messaging across several capitals. In simple terms, what happens in one night of escalation can reshape conversations in Washington, Tehran, Jerusalem, Riyadh, Brussels, Moscow, Beijing, and beyond. At the human level, though, the narrative remains deeply personal for civilians, especially those in cities repeatedly exposed to alerts. The emotional cost builds over time. Even when life appears to return to normal between incidents, the sense of normality is thinner than before. People continue working, continue commuting, continue sending children to school when possible, continue managing ordinary routines. But beneath all of that is the knowledge that another alert may interrupt everything again.
We know the outcome of this war, brothers and sisters. It's going to end with the defeat of American Britain. And defeat the House side. American Britain being kicked out. False Israel. Destruction. There's no backing out of this time of intense darkness, brothers and sisters. We're headed to it. So get ready to invest in your vision, brothers and sisters. Invest in getting out of America. All right, brothers and sisters. Stay tuned. We'll be back with more. Assalamu alaikum.